Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to SynthWorld on WSLR LP 96.5 FM Sarasota. This is your host, DJ Nomad, and I am thrilled to be joined here by, hopefully I'm getting this right, synthwave, kind of chill synth artist, Victor De La Cruz, aka NØVMBR. Victor, thanks for being here, man.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. And did I get that right? Is it NØVMBR? Is that
Yeah,
how you pronounce it?
yeah.
And also, what's the thing that goes through the O, just so I know?
So I mean, I actually should have done a little more research into this because like I don't do I have November as just what it is. I didn't have a reason for it being that way. And I get questions on that. What like how do you pronounce it, or are you Scandinavian, or uh what is it, Polish? No, I just kind of used it because it was in my keyboard and it was a way to differentiate myself from another November who just also used just the O vowel and no other vowels in
Mhm.
all caps. So yeah, it was just kind of a way to differentiate myself.
Yeah, I dig it. I didn't even realize, yeah, Polish or Scandinavian. I wasn't sure what that was. So if you happen to go searching, what you should, um, just know that there's a, yeah, like a European symbol through the O. I want to know, am I, do you feel like that those kind of genres describe your music well, or how would you describe your sound, if you will?
Yeah, it started out as me chasing the chill synth sound that was going around pretty much in 2020.
Mhm.
And then once I got a feel for producing, because that was my entry level, just like the whole first album I did was just like entry level me trying to produce. And once I figured out where I could kind of go with it, I lean more into vaporwave, so it's more like synthwave vaporwave.
Yeah, especially your most recent release, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
version of that.
that's that is heavily vaporwave.
Yeah, yeah, and I can't wait to talk to you about that album. So fun to listen to. We're gonna come back a little ways here. I want to, just for the listeners, get to know you a little bit. Fill out the cutout of a person that you are, and you happen to be now my second guest from my home state of Ohio.
Interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah, you've got some good company there in Ohio. More artists from that state than you would think. Now, are you, so you live in the Cincinnati area now, is that right?
Yeah, I'm about 30 minutes north from Cincinnati. But you know, everything everything in the area just gets shot back to Cincinnati. Like there's Kings Island in the area. That's in Mason, Ohio, but everyone's always like Kings Island's in Cincinnati. So it's kind of like, yeah.
So you grew up most of your life in Ohio, and then I think you just mentioned that you were, however, born in Texas. So you've got a little bit of Southerner in you, if you will.
Oh yeah, you know, like it's more that like I was born there and then moved when I was two to Ohio. But my family, my a lot of my family still lives there. My grandpa and my fa most of my father's relatives live there. So we would take a lot of trips to Texas from Ohio, and those would be, you know, 2-day car trips. But it was also fun. A lot of taco stands in San Antonio area.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I've only driven through Texas, but a great state, really cool. Would like to spend some more time there for sure. So I'm wondering, and if it's okay if you can't think of something, but how do you feel like growing up in Southern Ohio kind of generally affected your music taste and then kind of later on your own sound?
It was less of like, I guess, the Southern Ohio area, or more like the people I would eventually, you know, be friends with, the kind of music we'd share together that kind of gauged my musical taste.
Sure.
And it happened more recently when I went to college. In my senior year, I roomed with a couple of guys who have a great band called Respirator from Toledo, Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio, pretty much. That's just a shout out to them.
Cool.
But you know, they're in a great band and they listen to a lot of awesome music. So I'd say like in the last year, a couple years is when I like really got some of that kind of musical blending. I listened to a lot of music and bands that they showed me, showed them a lot of my music. I hope that they liked some of that. And yeah, I would say moreover, it was just the internet that kind of is where I found more of my music.
Sure. And let me ask you about that. YouTube, like where do you kind of Spotify? What, because I use YouTube really to like search for all this music and look for it. What do you do? Bandcamp?
It's more ambidextrous with YouTube and Spotify, I guess. It's like, um, maybe I just want to listen to a song that is by an artist that apparently is pretty well known. But sometimes if I'm not sure about that artist, I'll go to YouTube first because YouTube has more of the everybody's indie music projects is kind of up there, I guess.
So now, kind of coming back, I want to go digging deeper into November's musical past. We uncover his youthful and slightly comical origins as a drummer. Do you kind of recall any core kind of moments, memories in your life when you were younger, where you were really kind of connecting with music in a deep way? That kind of, maybe you can think of as maybe the genesis of like what you ended up doing and becoming.
I remember I was at my uncle's wedding. We were like, it was before the wedding. We were setting up the ballroom, and I was hitting this ice cooler to the rhythm of this one song, James by Lade, or like, sorry, Laid by James.
Oh,
Said
okay.
that backwards. But I was trying to play the drums on this ice cooler, and then I from that moment on, I was like, I want to be a drummer.
You
And
just love
then
the way it sounded.
yeah, pretty much I was just like, that's I want to get a drum set. And then when I was in fifth grade, I got a drum set, but I almost never played it because my house is old and you could hear the drums 3 floors above. I mean, 2 floors above, really. But yeah. So when I was in high school, I got to really drum, and I think just like the rhythms and the charts, they stuck in my head. And that's kind of how I felt. I want to compose rhythms. I want to make things that follow these kinds of rhythms. When you slow marching stuff down, they're pretty much chill synth rhythms because we're all just dancing around this 16 note grid, I feel
Hmm.
like.
Sure.
Um, and I think that, there's a lot of grooves that people still haven't created. So it's a big kind of like drumming and marching drumming kind of just got me into all of that.
So now, okay, so now can you think of maybe a person or two that you really would credit with that, getting the waves going, if you will?
Yeah, my sister, because ever since I was a kid and everything she did kind of inspired me to do something like, I mean, she also got me into making films. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but like videos, having a camera and directing and shooting a whole video. We did that when we were kids, and then she just kind of stopped doing that. But she also, with music, had so much, so many different styles to listen to. When she was like 9, she was obsessed with the Beatles. She also showed me bands that straight up inspired me to just kind of find music on my own that wasn't on the radio or whatever, but I could find it on YouTube, and then I could find it on Apple Music eventually. And then there was one band that I'll just kind of say like this is the kind of music I was listening to. Wild Party, Phantom Pop. That whole album was kind of like my stepping stone into that whole. But yeah, when it came to electronic music, I kind of kept that from my sister because I was scared that she was gonna say that's that's that synthesized stuff, that's that auto tune stuff. You don't need to listen to that. But I think eventually she started to mature as well in terms of like saying that all synthesized music is bad. I maybe I also misinterpreted that. Sorry, my sister. But yeah.
No, and I think, I mean, to be fair, if you think about it, like, you know, we are still at the kind of beginning stages from a longer historical view of electronic music being just a main part of music in the world.
Hmm.
And so I think it's totally understandable, but that each generation, probably less and less as we go, but in general, some chunk of those people will find that music to be too fake sounding or too different and or whatever synthesized sounding, and they will be off put by that.
Hmm.
But to your point, your sister, if she did feel that way, couldn't be more wrong. I mean, you want to talk about indie music, great, songwriting and passion for what you do. this genre of music is exemplary of that. Speaking of which, I want to ask of inspirations. I want to ask you about, your inspirations in this music, right? Obviously, you talk about how the beginnings of your sound were just heavily chill synth, and you think of, one, two, three, maybe artists that you feel like totally opened that door to the chill synth kind of down tempo scene for you.
Well, the first one is, I guess, Neon Indian, because
Oh,
That's probably the first artist I like found that was well, I found him through GTA Online, and first artist I found that like the I wasn't really thinking about electronic music or anything, but when I listened to that song, I was like, okay, there's something going on here. I gotta listen to this over and over again. The next artist would be Home, because yeah, when I was in middle school and I was watching Vine, I saw Bart Simpson driving with Home Resonance playing on a loop, and that was at the time that Home wasn't exactly on Spotify or most places to find you Bandcamp and SoundCloud, but like I didn't know that, and I was on a manhunt trying to find his music. Around like 2018, 2019 is when Electronic Gems had started posting what was pretty much modern chill synth, like what became like Voyage, Beyond, and Dynamic, Neon Indian, Home, and then there's Voyage, Allison, and Forehill, pretty much.
mhm.
Whoever was being featured on Electronic Gems in 2019 or so, I was all about that.
And Neon Indian, that's great. That's I love that stuff. That puts a smile on my face to hear someone your age digging Neon Indian.
hmm
Oh, that's
I saw
great.
him live last year, or I guess in 2023. I saw him live. I was front and center. That was one of the craziest nights of my life. And then my buddy Nico actually was invited on stage to sing a random song.
Oh, what? That's crazy.
I
Wow.
don't like he Neon and yeah, Alan was like, does anyone know the lyrics to this song? I forget what song. Does anyone want to come up on stage and sing it? And Nico was front and center and said, "Yep, I'll come up." And then he hopped up on stage, and I think maybe he didn't, and he just kind of mouthed his way through. But he had the confidence to go up there anyway.
He wanted to be up there. I mean, hey, good for him.
Yeah, I mean he's used to the stage presence, I guess too.
Yeah,
He's
so
in
some
the
of your other friends are performers too.
yeah, he's in that band I was saying, Respirator.
Greater. Okay, check them out, everybody.
hmm
Next question I want to ask you about, you kind of alluded to it, is creative outlets, right? I feel like
Yeah,
you've got to be creative enough to be doing something other than just music. So, do you have other creative outlets? Yeah.
yeah. I like to. I'm a photographer, videographer. I want to be a filmmaker, and I've kind of done. Well, I've done every bit of what I'm talking about so far. I have always before I did music, I was always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I really wanted a camera. My sister also got me into photography, and when I was around my sophomore year in high school is when I like bought a camera that met my specific expectations. Like I wanted a shallow depth of field. I wanted it to look cinematic and to have good quality. And for that 24 frames a second kind of effect with the motion blur and everything. Like I'm talking about a bunch of film stuff that like it takes a while to explain, but I didn't even know what I was talking about when I was getting that. And this was in like 2018, and I wanted to make a documentary about my marching band, so I did, and I coordinated with a lot of people. I asked for interviews. I set it all up myself and edited it all myself, and it ended up being an hour and 42 minutes. And then I showed it to my whole class, or my whole band. I like presented it in an auditorium, and everyone loved it, and I felt like, wow, this is what I could keep doing. And so what I do now is I've been trying to just do any kind of freelance photography I can. Um, I've tried to start. I'm in the process of starting to do wedding videos,
Nice.
and I'm buying all of this camera gear, and I feel like I'm ready to take on some cool stuff. But I also want to make movies at some point, like short films, and then see where that goes, and just kind of have that creative outlet take off.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I'm sure it will. Honestly, I have belief in you, faith or whatever. That's actually what I do. I'm a photographer, a videographer, so that's kind of
Yeah.
stick with it. You'll find that it does pay fairly well, And it's just so satisfying and fun to do creative work for a living. It really is. And then eventually you might be able to pair that with. We later on discuss his first mix and what helped him push through the adversity of learning the mastering process. Do you remember your first mix, your first like legit mix you tried to mix, you tried to master? Do you remember that? And what kind of kept you moving forward after hearing what was probably not, your greatest work, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the first mix I ever posted was where yeah, okay, so I'll kind of backtrack real quick. Like I've made stuff in GarageBand, but and I've posted them too, but like those were all me not really trying to do it or be taken seriously for it. But when I started Nickelodeon, which would soon be November, I put up con or what was it called? It was Cold. It was called Cold. It's the first track I finished with the MPK thing. This was without FL Studio and it was mixed in GarageBand, but to a level that I felt like was good. And I wasn't making stuff in GarageBand. I was making it in the MPK like software that you could make one stem at a time pretty much.
Hmm.
And I had this synth that came with the keyboard called Hybrid, and that was kind of like what I was using for that track. And it's the first track on my SoundCloud. You can go and find it now, and it sounds kind of bad, but at the same time, I think it's a good starter track. And what kept me going was I had a vision in my head, or like rather, I had an idea of how I wanted to sound one day. And what kept me going was that like this is a step forward, and I think like I just got to find a real DAW and actually kind of do some more mixing than what GarageBand allows me to do for that fact. And that's what I did. I got FL Studio. I invested money in like speakers and headphones, and I was just like kind of going off at that point.
What is it about these kind of nostalgic focused subgenres, reimagining previous generations of music? What is it about that you think is so captivating and fresh?
I guess it's just how we're able to make it sound now. I think it's really more about like, yeah, what kind of energy does it just give you? It's kind of generic, I know, but it's like, um, I don't know. When it came to home resonance, I didn't know what it was that made me feel nostalgic. I just knew that like if it ever stopped, I would stop feeling it. That feeling, I guess. So I guess what keeps things appealing to me is when I can feel that the music is kind of like a capture of someone's moment or maybe the concept of something that which is like, like when it comes to concept titles, tracks, like how many tracks are called Return or how many tracks are called I don't know, grid synth grid, something, like all these basic kind of track titles that is it doesn't stop at the title. Once you listen to the music and you associate it with the title or you associate it with whatever you're feeling in the moment, that's all I want in music, I guess, is to just feel that moment.
Give me three tracks that you feel like kind of really epitomize what the November sound is. I know it's changing and everything, but like if you could narrow it down,
Mhm.
what would you say those are?
So I have a few EPs, and that's kind of where most of these songs will come from. Is in the After Images EP. The first track I'll say is "Kids," because that's I guess more of that's probably the most me song I guess I've put out there. It's literally just kind of a nostalgic tune called "Kids." It's kind of making you think about your life as a kid. Like that's kind of what I hope to achieve with that. And it's supposed to just kind of be a nostalgic kind of thing, which that's one thing. Nostalgia captures what I try to make, and then the next track, In Touch, because that's probably my favorite track I've done where it really sounds like I'm going for a synthwave vibe. That's also chill, but like I feel like I stay in that synthwave range pretty good in that track, and that's kind of like what brought me here in the first place is synthwave. So Vaporwave, I guess. Yeah, basically each of these tracks I'm saying is basically what defines the genres I've explored. That the most recent track is the one I put on brand, 2 week notice.
Mhm.
That's
Great.
just kind of again a capture in my head of what I was like, this is so vaporwave.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and Synthwave is what brought me here, right? Similar to you, kind of, and yet it has opened up. I feel like it's opened up all these other doors, and Vaporwave is one of them. So I'm glad you kind of stumbled upon that door.
Hmm.
I want to ask you about kind of where you are now musically and moving forward. And I feel like getting there, especially after talking to you, goes through the door of Euphoria, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
So I want to read real quick the description you have of it on Bandcamp and then ask you about it. So the description is a comprehensive collection of media aired on a fictional TV channel about teen coming of age and Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love concept albums. I just want to ask you, can you first explain like how that idea came about? How far did you go down the rabbit hole with the lore? And then explain how that kind of leapfrogs to your most recent release.
I'll start off by saying that it didn't go very far in terms of character lore, but the
Sure.
concept for it kind of sticks to this day. I don't know. I changed it from what it originally was too. It was just the original bio had said it was just a demo album, and that's what it is. It's just an album full of demos that I was working on from after I finished televisions to like summer of 2022. And this was when I was in my dorm at school. This was kind of the time at school that I spent the most time on music, like before and after class, sometimes during classes, like on Zoom. I would just be making music, and everything that came out of that ended up in this demos album. The thing about the demos is I felt since they're short, it feels like they're lost media. It feels like they were once part of something, like a TV program or a commercial. This music was like the soundtrack for this one moment in this TV show, you know? It's that kind of like concept there. And like it was a year or so after I was done working on these that it hit me. I'm like, there's actually still more I can do for these tracks. So I found their project files, um, fixed them up because I learned a lot more. These weren't just like experiments anymore. I was like trying to polish them and then add on to them. And then I decided from that point I wanted to make an album out of whatever was the best of the best here in this Euphoria thing. And that's kind of where it led me to beginning on brand.
But that's really cool. Also, yeah, another great album to listen to, or it's an EP, Televisions. I don't remember.
Yeah, that was my album that I released with Puget Sound Collective, which was probably the more exciting of my releases ever because that thing, it was my first time doing a physical release, and I had a lot of fun making stuff for it. And a year for its anniversary, we worked with Stratford to put that on vinyl. So that album has a special place in my heart for sure.
That album cover is one of my favorites. I love that. And also, you can kind of see the beginnings of where you're going with the vaporwave feel with that.
Hmm.
It's totally.
Yeah.
I think the song I remember the most, honestly, was Urban. That's
Mm.
what I think that one was the first one I remember being like, oh, okay, whoa.
Yeah, that was like me finally getting the hang of mixing in Ableton and understanding like this new DAW. And I was just kind of like, I wanted to post that as just like, hey guys, check it out. I'm still making music and it sounds like this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm live. After discussing his previous releases, we finally moved to his most recent, most concise, and most mature release, On Brand. So let's fast forward to now, your most recent release. It's called Is On Brand, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. I wrote in my question, I said it's your most recent release is on brand, is so on brand, it doesn't even
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
so the real quick that like what that is, it's really called November on brand. Like the album is just on brand. But when we were making the art for it with Stratford, he gave me two versions. He's like November is on brand or November on brand. And I'm like, well, if the is kind of makes it sounds like I'm saying something, right?
yeah.
So that's just it's more November is on brand is more part of the art, while on brand is just what it's called.
Okay, cool. And dual. Either way, one or the other.
I was interested to hear how people would react to that, I guess.
Sure. I think it sounds great either way, honestly, but
Mhm.
the is a cool kind of, play off of that, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just what inspired that theme, for you mentally, and can you speak to whether there'll be more of this kind of like 90s, yeah, vaporwave, chill synthwave combo to come?
What kind of started the creation of the album was, like I said earlier, the four tracks that I really liked from the demo album. I gave them a shot. I finished some of the projects, I saved them, and then I went back into the projects, took everything out, all the MIDI and stuff, because I saved it as something else. And then I made a whole new song using the mixing and synths that I had already going for some of those songs. So that's why some songs are just easily just they sound like the other song and it's part of the album. But I still made like short songs. I wasn't really trying to go for structure, I guess. And to keep in the theme of it being kind of like lost tracks, like they were once part of something. They were once part of some TV show or some commercial, and they're just lost to time now. So I wanted to kind of do that, and it also kind of came to be because of how I kind of was like defining vaporwave all my life. So vaporwave usually kind of started with like being a slower song that was remixed and had reverb and drums added to it,
Mhm.
loop sections and all that kind of stuff, like Macintosh Plus, pretty much. But then there were artists that were composing vaporwave, like Windows 96. I really
Great artist.
love, I really really love 100 Mornings, because it just sounds like vaporwave, but it's not sampled. It's like it's all coming from some guy's brain, and I thought that was really cool.
Actually,
So
a E too. It's a female. It's
what's
a
that?
woman. Windows 96. It's a woman, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Really?
yeah, yeah, and that your Thousand Mornings, Windows 96. If you're listening, first of all, come on the show. Second of all, yes, that's easily one of the coolest like indie down tempo vapor wavy style albums ever, right?
Mhm.
So sorry, go ahead. Yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. I just really loved all of that stuff. So when it came to me making like televisions, I wanted there to be vaporwave style in there, but like what I pretty much made was synthwave blended with vaporwave, like as my kind of thing. And I like that people still attribute it like that television's album to being just vaporwave. I like that. But I wanted to make something that kind of really felt like how I feel with vaporwave, which is it's lost media. It does kind of give off that reverby, like remixed vibe, and then I like it's lost to time, so it's like a capture of a moment. It's not supposed to stay here for long, so that's why the album is short. But there are a few songs that are full length. And when it came to you'll notice in Job Hunt, the collaboration with Horizon, the reason that that exists is because I had three very short tracks that I was like, I don't know if I should just have three more 45-second tracks on this album. So I asked Horizon, hey, could you like work some of your magic, your glitchy, reverby magic, and just kind of blend these songs together? Like they're just kind of, yeah, can you just blend them together? And he said, yes, I would love to. So he did, and what you hear on the album is what he sent. Pretty much, he just like perfectly blends these songs together, and it sounds exactly like a smaller version of an album. Pretty much, it's pretty much sounds like a small EP. Like when you can say that anyone in the community sounds like they're lost media, that's when I'm like, then that means they're probably the best artist out there. They're one of the best, because like that's what I love is when we can make it sound like it's lost to time or it didn't come out this year.
it feels like Euphoria and like everything kind of leading up to that, if you will, maybe with the exception of televisions or whatever, was is kind of like the coming of the end of an era for you, right? Because I feel like On Brand is like a decisively kind of more mature and kind of focused, more developed sound. I feel like a lot of the guys I interview, it's always like right as they're coming into that. So I don't know. Do you feel like it sounds like the answer to this is yes, but would you feel like that's you kind of On Brand as you finding your sound?
Yeah, it's I guess it's like me finally stretching that muscle all the way out to be what it can be. It's overall just like what I wanted to make out of Vaporwave from the beginning, I guess. For it to sound organic but not sampled and more just like creating like I said before, creating what feels like lost media. I feel like I've done that. I think that with Vaporwave, I've kind of tired myself out. So I am kind of moving on to another genre. I wanna turn up the tempo, open up the filter, like have it not be so low pass, and kind of just advance into DnB kind of stuff. And I'm working on stuff right now that it doesn't have a name or anything, but the vibe is kind of like PS2 era, PS3 even, and especially Wii kind of menu music, games music that kind of jumps into DnB territory. And as well, I'll just blend in whatever stuff I do know, like synthwave, if it comes up, or like I feel like I've explored several areas where specifically it can stay in the realm of being video game music overall, as like the heart of it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my, okay, yes, that's. I want
Yeah.
to. I want to ask you about some your kind of evolution in just a moment, but that's great to hear. You remind me. It's starting to give me Sphero vibes here, with what you just described. But I think is great. I feel like that is kind of one of the next pieces of of this genre, like the next evolution of this area of music. So, overall, just if you can sum it up, how's your experience been collaborating with other artists? And maybe, who would you say is your favorite person you've collaborated with so far?
I mean, with the last couple of years that I've done collabs, the Horizon one I'd say is one of the better ones because it was easy for both of us. Horizon and I, we've been trying to do some collabs. Like I sent him an idea or he sent me an idea, and then neither of us really get back to each other with it. But the one that I sent him was perfect for him, and it was perfect for him to just kind of like help me out there.
Yeah.
I've also done collaborations with Fuji. I've done the most with him, I think, and he inspires me a lot, and he's probably my favorite to work with because of just how like when I sent him an idea, how different that idea came back to me, and how I loved it so much.
It almost is the other way around, right?
To wrap our interview, we move to post production questions, as well as what to expect from the rest of 2025 from November.
Urban's main synth lead is definitely the Mini V from Arturia, single oscillator preset that has some reverb. The cutoff is likely all the way down, and the envelope is opened up to where you hear it pop. And it's just like I always love bringing up home resonance every chance I can.
Yeah.
And it's basically what I learned from that song is that the main pads patch is pretty much just the cutoff is low, the envelope is up. In resonance, I don't think that the resonance is up very much for it being called resonance, but the attack has a slight it's slightly up, so it's like it kind of fades in. It kind of feels like it's wah, and then the decay shuts it down just as fast, kind of.
Desert Island, 80s, 90s, maybe if you want to throw in early 2000s movie soundtracks that, you could live without.
The Shrek soundtrack, I guess.
Okay.
But then
A good one.
I guess more I guess game soundtracks. The Sonic
Okay, sure.
the Sonic Classic Collection, Sonic 1, 2, 3, 3 and Knuckles CD, all of that like Sega Mega Collection sound.
Guys your age, people your age, like not as feeling like they appreciate the older retro stuff as much, and it just warms my heart to hear that you dig that stuff.
Hmm.
You listen to it and you know about it. Because there's
It's
so
more of
much.
my brother. My brother's the real gamer, and he just like feeds me all this like extra information that I'm not really asking for. But once I hear it, I'm like, you know what? I look at the world differently now.
Do you think it's early in the year? You think it's likely we could expect something like that to emerge in 2025?
I just got a new job, which has definitely opened up my time for more creative stuff, and I'm happy about that. But deciding what creative thing I want to do more is kind of difficult right now because I haven't mentioned this earlier, but with On Brand, there's one more element that I have been working on before and throughout the re release. And so I'm not sure when that's coming out, but it is at a point that it's just taking its time. I'm collaborating with people to bring a visual element to the whole album. It'll be like a watch party
Sure.
pretty much.
Oh, nice.
But I don't just want it to be just visuals. I want it to also have some substance, kind of like lore, if you will. So I'm working on that.
Very exciting stuff. And, we're at the end here. I want to give, before we kind of sign off, I want to make sure not just myself, but all of our SynthWorld listeners here can figure out where to keep track of you and find out about all this stuff. So let them have it. Tell them where they can get more November in their life.
All right, so first on Instagram, there's a November account. Do not follow it. It has been hacked for 3 years, and whoever hacked it gave up the minute they had access to the account. Instagram does not send human beings to help you get your profile back, so I cannot get back in it. So my Instagram is not November, it is v.delacruz with two Z's. It's just my name, but you'll be able to. I also have that I am November in my bio, so you'll know it's me. And that's kind of it. I'm not really on much else. I'm not on Twitter or anything anymore. And I think it's just been easiest to announce everything going on in my life on Instagram. So
Sure. And all your work is on Bandcamp, correct? Or most of it, I should say.
yeah, most of it's on Bandcamp. I gotta use it more. Probably put out a new demos album sometime soon. I don't know. But then also my SoundCloud. That's where I actually am more active in terms of posting music.
All right. Well, you heard it. That's where to, get access to Victor De La Cruz, aka November. I just want to, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll get some more November in 2025. Thanks again, Victor, and stay retro. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you for having me.